Russian President Vladimir Putin has decided to move one of Russia's holiest icons from a museum to a Moscow cathedral.
Have you seen the rumors swirling online about Russia uncovering some crazy discovery? Apparently, they found proof that black people were the true Israelites all along. Now, before we jump to conclusions and rewrite history, let's dig into this story. Is there any truth to these claims, or is it just another internet mystery? We'll be separating fact from fiction and exploring the fascinating history of the Black Hebrew Israelites. The Black Hebrew Israelite movement, while garnering recent online attention, boasts a rich history rooted in 19th century America. Born from a complex interplay of religious revivalism, racial injustice, and a yearning for identity, it offers a unique interpretation of scripture and ancestry. Let's delve deeper into their origins and core beliefs. The Black Hebrew Israelite movement has its roots in the late 19th century, with figures like Frank Cherry and William Saunders Crowdy. They claim to have received revelations from God, saying that African Americans are descendants of the Hebrews from the Bible. Through claimed revelations, they argued for a connection between Black Americans and the biblical Israelites. This resonated deeply with a population recently freed from searching for a sense of belonging and a history stripped away by the brutality of the trade. Central to Black Hebrew Israelite beliefs is the concept of being descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, specifically those referred to as the scattered tribes. They interpret passages from the Bible, particularly the book of Deuteronomy, as foreshadowing the and dispersal of Black people. They view the transatlantic trade as a fulfillment of this prophecy, with their arrival in America marking a new chapter in their journey. Key scriptures in their theology include Deuteronomy 28:68, which speaks of being sold unto your enemies, and Leviticus 26:13, referencing broken the yoke and brought you forth out of the land of Egypt. These verses are seen as evidence of God's plan for their ancestors and their eventual redemption. The movement also holds distinct views on Jesus. Unlike mainstream Christianity, they don't believe in the divinity of Jesus, seeing him as a prophet, much like Moses or Elijah. This aligns with their rejection of the New Testament, focusing primarily on the Hebrew Bible and its teachings. Black Hebrew Israelite practices can vary depending on specific groups within the movement. Some adhere to a strict vegan diet, interpreting dietary laws from the Old Testament literally. Observance of the Sabbath and other holy days is also common. Additionally, some communities practice polygamy, drawing inspiration from certain biblical figures who had multiple wives. Cherry started the Church of the Living God, the pillar ground of truth for all nations, in 1886, while Crowdy founded the Church of God and Saints of Christ in 1896. Cherry had some unique beliefs. He thought the Talmud, a Jewish text, was important, and predicted that Jesus would come back in the year 2000. He also believed in a square earth, surrounded by layers of heaven. Cherry didn't allow things like playing the piano or collecting money during worship, and he taught his followers to pray facing east. He also didn't think highly of white Jews. Crowdy's church, based in Kansas, kept a connection to Jesus in their beliefs. Another important figure was William Christian. Many of the early leaders of this movement were Freemasons and were influenced by Masonic traditions. After Cherry's death in 1963, his son Prince Benjamin F. Cherry took over leading the movement. More Black Hebrew congregations popped up over the years. After World War I, Wentworth Arthur Matthew started another congregation in Harlem, calling it the Commandment Keepers of the Living God. He said they were descendants of Israelites, and later moved the group to Brooklyn. There, he founded the Israelite Rabbinical Seminary to train Black Hebrew rabbis. These groups blended elements of Judaism with their own style of worship, similar to what's seen in Black churches. They took what they liked from Judaism and made it their own, forming a unique religious community. Some groups within the Black Hebrew Israelite movement preach their beliefs on the streets. They often use aggressive tactics and say things that are hateful towards Jews, racist, and xenophobic. This kind of preaching made headlines in 2019 when they targeted students from Covington Catholic High School in Kentucky. During the incident, these extremists insulted the students. They even threatened violence, telling one African-American student that his white classmates would harm him and take his organs. It's important to note that not all black people who practice Judaism are part of this movement. Shais Rishon, who is a black Orthodox Jewish writer and activist, points out that there's a difference between the mainstream black Jewish community and the black Hebrew Israelite movement. Rishon emphasizes that black Hebrew Israelites don't share the same beliefs, community, or issues as black Jews. He's worried that people confuse the two groups, which erases the identity of black Jews. He wants to make it clear that black Hebrew Israelites aren't considered a part of Judaism and that it's wrong to mix up these two communities. The Church of the Living God, the pillar ground of truth for all nations, founded by Frank Cherry in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1886, is the oldest known black Hebrew organization. Originally from the Deep South, and with a varied work history, Cherry taught himself Hebrew and Yiddish. The church blended aspects of Judaism and Christianity, considering both the Bible and the Talmud as important texts. Cherry's congregation practiced a mix of Jewish customs and Christian traditions. They wore skull caps during prayers and faced east, similar to Jewish practices. They also abstained from eating pork. Their worship included music and gospel singing. Cherry passed away in 1963 at around 95 years old, and his son, Prince Benjamin F. Cherry, took over leadership. Members believed Cherry would return in spirit to guide them through his son. The church maintained its unique blend of Jewish and Christian teachings and rituals under Prince Benjamin's leadership. The Church of God and Saints of Christ was started in Lawrence, Kansas, in 1896 by William Saunders Crowdy, an African-American. Crowdy moved the church's headquarters to Philadelphia in 1899 and later to Washington, D.C. in 1903. When Crowdy passed away in 1908, William Henry Plummer took over and moved the headquarters to Belleville, Virginia in 1921. By 1936, the church had over 200 congregations called tabernacles and 37,000 members. It was led by Howard Zebulon Plummer from 1931, then by his son Levi Solomon Plummer from 1975. Rabbi Jehu A. Crowdy, Jr., a great-grandson of William Saunders. Crowdy led the church from 2001 until his death in 2016. Since then, Philip E. McNeil has been leading the church. In 2005, the church had 50 tabernacles in the U.S. and more in Africa. The Church of God and Saints of Christ claims to be the oldest African-American congregation in the U.S., following Jewish beliefs. They believe that all Jews were originally black and that African Americans are descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. They see Jesus as a follower of Judaism and a prophet, not as divine or the Son of God. They also consider Crowdy, their founder, to be a prophet. Their rituals combine elements from both Judaism and Christianity. They follow practices from both the Old and New Testaments. This includes using the Jewish calendar, celebrating Passover, circumcising infant males, observing the Sabbath on Saturday, and wearing yarmulkes. They also practice baptism, immersion, and foot washing, which have roots in the Old Testament. In 1919, Wentworth Arthur Matthew founded the Commandment Keepers congregation in Harlem. Matthew was inspired by the Jewish people he encountered, as well as by Marcus Garvey and his Universal Negro Improvement Association. Garvey likened the plight of black people in North America to the exile of the biblical Jews. He emphasized a connection between black Americans and Africa, especially Ethiopia. When Matthew discovered the Beta Israel, or Ethiopian Jews, he felt a strong affinity with them. Today, the Commandment Keepers follow Jewish customs and celebrate Jewish holidays. They keep kosher, circumcise newborn boys, and hold bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies. During worship, men and women are separated by a screen called a mechitza. The Commandment Keepers believe they are descendants of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Matthew taught that black people are the true Jews, but he also respected non-black Jews for preserving Judaism. He maintained friendly relations with non-black Jewish leaders in New York and often invited them to his synagogue. In Brooklyn, Matthew established the Ethiopian Hebrew Rabbinical College, later renamed the Israelite Rabbinical Academy. He ordained over 20 rabbis who served in congregations across the U.S. and the Caribbean. Matthew led the Harlem congregation until his death in 1973. His grandson, David Matthew Doré, was named as his successor when he was just 16 years old. However, in 1975, the synagogue's board elected Rabbi Willie White as the leader instead. This led to and by the 1990s, membership dwindled. In 2007, the Commandment Keepers sold their Harlem building amidst internal disputes. Despite this, there are still several Commandment Keepers congregations in New York and across North America, as well as in Israel. Since 2000, 7 rabbis have graduated from the Israelite Rabbinical Academy. Wentworth Arthur Matthew, in 1919, founded the Commandment Keepers congregation in Harlem. Matthew was inspired by the Jewish people he encountered, as well as by Marcus Garvey and his Universal Negro Improvement Association. Garvey likened the plight of black people in North America to the exile of the biblical Jews. He emphasized a connection between black Americans and Africa, especially Ethiopia. When Matthew discovered the Beta Israel, or Ethiopian Jews, he felt a strong affinity with them. Today, the Commandment Keepers follow Jewish customs and celebrate Jewish holidays. They keep kosher, circumcise newborn boys, and hold bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies. During worship, men and women are separated by a screen called a mechitza. The Commandment Keepers believe they are descendants of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Matthew taught that black people are the true Jews, but he also respected non-black Jews for preserving Judaism. He maintained friendly relations with non-black Jewish leaders in New York and often invited them to his synagogue. In Brooklyn, Matthew established the Ethiopian Hebrew Rabbinical College, later renamed the Israelite Rabbinical Academy. He ordained over 20 rabbis who served in congregations across the U.S. and the Caribbean. Matthew led the Harlem congregation until his death in 1973. His grandson, David Matthew Doré, was named as his successor when he was just 16 years old. However, in 1975, the synagogue's board elected Rabbi Willie White as the leader instead. This led to conflict, and by the 1990s, membership dwindled. In 2007, the Commandment Keepers sold their Harlem building amidst internal disputes. Despite this, there are still several Commandment Keepers congregations in New York and across North America, as well as in Israel. In 1966, Ben Ami Ben Israel founded the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem in Chicago, Illinois, during a time of growing black nationalism in response to the civil rights movement. In 1969, Ben Ami and around 30 Hebrew Israelites relocated to Israel after spending some time in Liberia. Over the next 2 decades, nearly 600 more members joined them, moving from the United States to settle in Dimona and other towns in the Negev region of Israel. These communities are often referred to as Black Hebrews. The Black Hebrews believe they are descendants of the tribe of Judah, exiled from the land of Israel after the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in 70 CE. They integrate elements of African American culture into their interpretation of the Bible and do not follow rabbinical Jewish interpretations like the Talmud. They observe Shabbat and Jewish holidays, such as Yom Kippur and Passover. Their dress includes tzitzit on African print shirts, and women adhere to the biblical laws concerning menstruation. Newborn boys are circumcised, and they follow a vegan diet and wear only natural fabrics according to their understanding of the Bible. Many men have more than one wife, and birth control is not allowed. When the first Black Hebrews arrived in Israel, they sought citizenship under the law of return, which grants immediate citizenship to eligible Jews. However, the Israeli government in 1973 ruled that they didn't qualify because they couldn't prove Jewish descent or had undergone Orthodox conversion. This led to the denial of work permits and state benefits, which the group saw as discriminatory. Civil rights activists, including Bayard Rustin, investigated in 1981 and found no evidence of racism behind the government's decisions. Some members were deported for working illegally, prompting some to renounce their American citizenship. In 1990, an agreement was reached with the help of Illinois legislators, resolving their legal status in Israel. They were granted permission to work and access to housing and social services. They regained their American citizenship and received aid from the U.S. government. In 2003, the agreement was revised, granting them permanent residency in Israel. Eliakim ben Israel became the first black Hebrew to gain Israeli citizenship in 2009, with more potential to follow. Today, some young men and women from the African Hebrew community serve in the Israeli Defense Forces, and they have represented Israel in international sporting events and academic competitions. They have a popular gospel choir that tours in Israel and the U.S., and they own restaurants in several Israeli cities. In 2003, singer Whitney Houston visited them in Dimona, bringing attention to their community. In 2006, Eddie Butler, a black Hebrew, represented Israel in the Eurovision Song Contest, showcasing their presence in the country. African-American Christian apologetics groups like the Jude 3 Project have criticized the theological and historical claims made by various black Hebrew Israelite sects. Zimbabwean novelist Masimba Musodza believes that black Hebrew Israelites twist scripture to fit their agenda, leading to anti-Semitism. Historians like Josephus, Emil Schurer, and Friedrich Münter have written about Jewish in Egypt and the Roman Empire, contradicting claims that Egypt represents the Americas. There's no evidence of a Kingdom of Judah in West Africa, and claims of a connection to the Kingdom of Wida lack historical support. Critics argue that black Hebrew Israelites ignore the struggles Jewish immigrants faced in the United States and make inaccurate claims about the transatlantic trade. Fran Markowitz, a cultural anthropology professor, notes discrepancies between Hebrew Israelite beliefs and historical evidence, including claims about Socrates and William Shakespeare's race. The idea of black people being the true Israelites from the Bible is interesting. Black Hebrew Israelites believe they're descendants of the 12 tribes, especially the scattered ones. They see slavery as a fulfillment of Bible verses describing being sold and brought forth. Their beliefs are important to them, but history tells a different story. Scientists say the ancient Israelites lived in the Middle East, a land with many people of mixed backgrounds. People moved around a lot back then, making it hard to say exactly who looked how. Even the Bible doesn't describe Israelites by race. It focuses on their religion, not skin color. Modern studies on Jewish people show a mix of Middle Eastern, European, and African ancestry, reflecting this movement throughout history. So, while black Hebrew Israelites have a strong belief, the evidence points to a more diverse picture of the Israelites' origins. It's a cool story, but history paints a more complex scene. Remember, the Black Hebrew Israelite movement has a rich history and interesting beliefs, but it's important to be critical of online claims. When it comes to the Israelites' origins, the picture is more complex than just one race. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments what other history mysteries you'd like to crack open next time.